All right, welcome everybody to the first ever episode of the Sports Stooges podcast. I am your host, sports guy Jason, and I'm being joined today by podcast professional Tone. Go ahead and shout out all your stuff you do because I had tried to remember, but I'd missed
Whew.
something.
I might forget something. Let's see. All right, let's start with the main ones. So I am at the Tone Gordon on Twitter. That's my main form. I don't really do Instagram personally, so you can find me over there. And then my main gig is the Man to Man Pod. So that's at the Man to Man Pod on Instagram and on Twitter. We also do have a Facebook. So if you do Facebook, go over there. And then Athletes Unplugged with Nicole Jackson. So that's at Athletes Unplugged on IG, at Athletes Unplug, because there's only 15 letters you can use on Twitter, apparently, on Twitter. And then, and then my main personal podcast is Off the Rails with Tone and Gems with my buddy Gems, obviously. And that's, I think it's just Off the Rails _ pod. So everywhere. So, yeah, I think that's the majority of what I do.
It keeps you busy, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So for our first episode, I figured I'd start with something fun.
Yeah.
And I think this will be a regular segment, but we're going to do a fantasy style draft of baseball movies today.
I'm with it.
And since you are the guest, you get to choose. Do you want the first pick or the snake picks round 2 and 3?
Give me the snake pick. I'll take the snake pick.
All right. Well, then, since I get number 1 overall, this is going to be an easy one for me, and that is The Sandlot.
Oh, that's a great one.
If I'm going to pick a baseball movie to watch, not everybody's played at the highest levels, but everybody, has played at The Sandlot. I can still remember, growing up, I lived on a main street, but behind me there was a little cul-de-sac, and that created this weird field. Kind of behind everybody's garages there. That's where we always used to get together and play, until we got a little bit bigger.
It's funny. I never played a lot of Sandlot baseball, surprisingly. But I played a lot of AAU baseball. But we just never had a good enough group of guys that wanted to always get together and do it. So I love it. I love that movie, though.
All right. And you get your 2 picks now.
Man. So I'll take the obvious one. It's not necessarily my favorite, but I think in the pantheon of, sorry, you can hear my kid just yelling at the top of his lungs. I have the pantheon of baseball movies. I think everyone would go with probably Field of Dreams. So I'll take Field of Dreams as my first one.
I mean, obviously, that's, a boy playing catch with his dad, ghost baseball.
Yeah.
I've actually gone out to the Field of Dreams. I had a cousin that lives a couple hours from there. And I went up one time and made the drive. I know they were talking. Eventually, somebody bought a bunch of the cornfields around there, and they're going to put up like a baseball softball complex all around it.
Oh wow!
But they still have to preserve X amount of rows of corn for the baseball field. Was part of the sale deal.
That's dope.
And then the funny part was, for a long time, where there are 2 farms that butted up against each other there. So the field was technically on 2 separate farms.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't realize that.
So they told, as part of when you go out there, they tell you the story, like, this set of bleachers was on this farm, this set was on the other. And if you came to this one, it was free, but you had to pay admission to go over there. It was just odd. It's like, and then they finally talked the other guy into selling out. So
they were like, "Come on, dude, chill out with that." Yeah, no, I think that's definitely, like, I mean, it's a good movie. I've seen it probably a zillion times, but I mean, like, if I was gonna go baseball movies, it probably wouldn't be the first one I'd pop in, but it's always a good one. If it's on TV, I'll watch it like 9 times out of 10. So I'll take it. And then my next pick, I will take my personal favorite, and it's just because it's really the first baseball movie I remember, and I watched it a zillion times, probably starting at the age of like 6, 7. Is Major League. I love Major League.
Okay, so you did. That was going to be in my turn in my next set of picks too. So
I was so worried. I was like, he might take it, but I have to have it. So it's because it's my favorite. So I love Major League.
And that's where Sandlot went for me. I was like, I ain't letting anybody else get this. I was like, always got to let the guests have the option to pick their picks. But man, I don't want to lose that one. But Major League was another one up there. I mean, when I first talked to you about doing the top 5, that would have been number 3 out of my top 5 movies of
Nice.
baseball.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just such a classic. It's a little different. It's a little rough around the edges, obviously. There's so many characters that are like iconic, whether it be Ricky Vaughn or Joe Boo or whatever. There's so many that are like just like big time like staples of like the thought process when you think of like movie baseball.
Every spring when we get to spring training, that's one of those movies I just have to plop in. Or now, of course, I want to age myself there, plop it in. But now you just pick a streaming service,
right,
and watch it. It's because it's still always funny. Yeah,
I love it. I love it. Every now and then they'll play like movie marathons on like MLB Network, or they used to like in the last couple of years, and I'm like sometimes I'll catch it on there, but it's so funny because they change all like the curse words to like not curse words, but there's a lot of curse words in that movie.
Just a few.
I'm interested to see where you go with the 4th pick.
So the 4th pick was a pretty easy one because it was my number 2 on my top 5 behind Sandlot, and that is Bull Durham.
I kind of figured that might be.
I mean, again, Crash Davis is just one of the all-time immortal pantheon of baseball movie actors.
Definitely. I mean, Kevin Costner, baseball movie. I mean,
they're always going to be a home run, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I haven't seen a bad one, so even bad ones are good ones.
And again, of course, it kind of gives you a misrepresentation of life in the minor league baseball system. I think I live in a minor league baseball town, and I think every player likes to remind you that there is no Susan Sarandon waiting for you.
No,
at a minor league stadium.
No, Susan Sarandon, low-key, if we did a draft of like women that like were probably on my list as an adolescent teen till now, Susan Sarandon might be like one of my top 3 picks. I don't know why, but
well, because she played so many iconic roles
that were iconic.
It's just she was definitely up there for every boy in that age range for sure.
For sure.
It's right there with Alyssa Milano.
yeah. Surprisingly, she got into the baseball line. She has sports clothes, so
she does. All right, so my 3rd one's a little more tricky because you took my 3 and 4 already out of my list, and I'm trying to think if I want to go with number 5 now or if I think it'll slide through.
That's the fun part of these drafts is like the thought process of like, do I think so and so will take that pick? Can I get it a little later? Do I have to take it now? It's wild.
No, I'm taking it anyways. Number 3 for me is Moneyball.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
I read the book before I ever watched the movie. Obviously the movie's not very, it's close to the book, but not really. It more focuses on just kind of one specific season of one aspect of what the book talked about.
Yeah.
And I have my own critiques of the book because, you can focus on all the bargain hitters that Billy Beane signed, but if you don't make any mention of Hudson, Zito, and Mulder in what they were able to accomplish, and it really didn't, it's like, kind of leaving out a big detail there. He had 3 bargain aces at the time.
He did. And the crazy thing is like Hudson was not super highly. I mean, he was touted enough, but he wasn't like when he came on. It was like okay, but then Zito kind of had a little fanfare behind him, and Mulder was good coming out. I mean, they just worked really well. I mean, those are 3 aces on most teams. I mean, at that time.
I mean, and they all got ace money when they left.
Yeah.
I mean, it was no doubter. Again, did they all perform as well once they left? Injuries and time catch up, and that's, that's life. But I've always just been impressed by what Billy Beane was able to accomplish in Oakland with every, his payroll restraints, with his stadium restraints.
Oh yeah,
I mean it's
definitely an interesting franchise, and for them to get good and the players they pulled, and I mean, that's an accomplishment of what those teams went on to accomplish with having such a low payroll, especially in the time where guys were getting contracts that were even stupid astronomical compared. Now they're still astronomical, but that was like when people were like breaking record after record after record every time someone got a contract, and it was like nuts. So
a little different. 252 million since a little different today than it did, 15, 20 years ago.
For sure. It did. Oh man, I'm gonna have I don't know if I'm like at that point where I'm like, do I want to go with personal favorites or do I want to go with like what people think as far as like good baseball movies? Because there's so many. Like I'm like, I'm gonna go with an obvious one that I think is a good one. It's not. It's not a. It's a good watch. It's also baseball centered, but it's not. Um, I don't think traditional when people think of like pure baseball movies. It is basically entirely about baseball, but give me Angels in the Outfield.
Okay, that was one I didn't put on my list, but it was close. I was like, do I want it on there? Don't I? But I have a couple other movies in that same vein. So,
Yeah.
again, if you're a baseball fan of any level, and again, uh, being somebody who was born in the very, very, very early '80s, that movie came out at just the right time to be
Oh,
one
for
that
sure.
you know. And there were a whole series of them in that time frame. I'm not going to necessarily name them all because they may come up still yet.
For sure. No, and that's where I'm like struggling because I have one that's a favorite and I have another one. I have two that like I think of as almost like even level right now that I'm like, man, do I want to take either of them? And they're two in like two different sides of the stratosphere for me. I'm gonna take one that I will feel bad if I don't have it on my list, and that is another Kevin Costner movie. It's probably my favorite, second favorite baseball movie ever, and that's For the Love of the Game. I love that movie.
All right. Yeah, again, didn't quite make my list just because after a point, it's like, all right, how many Kevin Costner movies do I want to have in here? And how long do I want to
I
go?
mean, Detroit Tigers pitcher throws a perfect game. I mean, I'm sold.
Uh, I still try to remember every year to immortalize Andres Galarraga's 28 out perfect game
Yeah,
for Detroit Tigers pitcher. Boy, if there was ever a guy who just missed instant replay by just a
dude.
year or two,
I think about it every time I'm watching like some sport, or every time I'm watching baseball, and there's like they use an instant replay. I'm like, man, it was
and,
safe.
and he handled it with such grace and class. I think it was a bigger win for him than actually getting the perfect
Oh
game
yeah, for sure.
because everybody else in the world's like, I could see myself melting down in this situation very easily.
For sure.
Like I would have lost. Nope. He just like, okay, get the ball. Let's go get the last out.
And the crazy thing is there's so many guys that have. I mean, there's not so many guys that have perfect games, but there's so many guys that have like perfect games or no hitters that like you don't even think about per se. But like the dude that didn't get a perfect game, and you think of him almost more synonymously with the perfect game.
Yeah, I think again, I think that just worked out perfectly. It could have been easy to just, okay, let's go with it and be mad, but no.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the stuff that yeah, I mean, instant replay would have changed that whole thing, but it is what it is. Part of baseball, you know.
The imperfect human is part of baseball. All right,
Yes,
so
it
I'm
is.
kind of in the same spot you are now. Is you're getting into some of, do we go for the all timers? Do we go for some of my personal favorites? I think for the first one, I'm going to take one that if it wasn't on either of our lists, I would feel bad. I don't think it's as highly rated in the baseball movies. Some lists it makes it up there, but usually not the top 10 or anything like that. And that's 8 Men Out.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Um,
Definitely a good one.
the Black Sox scandal was just such a part of baseball,
Oh
and it
yeah.
kind of took the cloak off of some of it, at least. Of here's what happened, here's who was involved, and here's kind of some of the guys who got caught up that didn't even have a clue what they were doing.
Right.
I think a ton of people make a big deal about Pete Rose not being in the Hall of Fame, but I think Joe Jackson is a bigger oversight in my opinion because.
Mhm.
Yeah, did he probably sign a document that he couldn't read? Sure. Did he
Probably.
probably take some money? I'm sure. Because those guys weren't making anything back then. But did his
Yeah.
play change at all? Absolutely
No.
not. The numbers were fantastic.
He was great. Like, I mean, if he was throwing it, I don't know where he was throwing it. But.
Yeah. Like, and again, it's one. I don't know that anybody necessarily threw that series as much as if you talk to some of the historians, like, oh, those pitchers were just completely burnt out, and the players found a way to capitalize and take a paycheck. Like they knew they probably weren't winning that series going in.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And there's baseball was a lot different than it is today. I mean, you had guys that were making very small, tiny wages and going to work a job after the season. I mean, it's not like today's where it's those guys are set for life. So
Get past your rookie limitations there in baseball, and the sky's the limit.
yeah,
So my next one, see, I think I'm going to only go with one off the wall one. I'm going to save that for the last one, especially since I get the last picks
yeah.
as well. But again, living in South Bend, if I didn't pick a league of their own,
Oh, that's a good
home of the South Bend Blue Sox, I probably would have gotten thrown out of town.
I was going to take that next, so that was a good pick.
You could, because I was wondering. That was when I was like, "Does it slide?" I said, "I don't think so. I think it's made it too far down already."
I was gonna say I thought I that was the one I was like questioning back and forth with For the Love of the Game, and I was like two different. One was like obviously one very it's like comedy sort. I guess they're kind of a similar movie. I guess they're sort of comedy, sort of serious, but two different you in almost two different like leagues basically. Yeah. No, I definitely like that. That's a good pick. That's a great movie too. I mean, I just watched that again maybe like 3-4 months ago.
As I say, anytime it's on TV, I just stop what I'm doing. I'm like, all right, we're committed for the rest of this now.
Feel like we're watching this.
And I'm sure it's on any of my 18 streaming services on my TV.
It has to be, right? You would think there should be a baseball movie streaming service. That's how many baseball movies there are.
$1 million idea there,
right? Copyrighted. No, just kidding. Oh man, I always like these lists when they start because you're like, oh, the possibilities, and then you get down and you're like, I have so many freaking movies that I'm like, which one do I go with?
I'm we'll definitely do an honorable mention after we get through our 6 picks.
Oh, thank goodness.
I've got a fistful of myself that aren't going to get picked. That I'm like, oh no, got to talk about those at least for a minute here.
All right, I'm gonna go with a recent one that I really really like. I guess it's not. I don't know how recent it is. I guess it's recenter. I guess. I'm gonna take 42, the Jackie Robinson story.
Okay, so that was one that I was looking at. So
yeah, I was like, they did a good job with it.
No,
and that's the tough part is like a lot of baseball movies where you're like, if you can suspend your fandom of actual sports, then like you can get into it. But sometimes you're just watching, you're like, that's what makes League of Their Own so good, is like you believe that they're actually playing.
Yeah, no, like the baseball was good.
Yeah, feels good. And so like same thing with like For the Love of the Game. A lot of that movie feels like you're in it, sort of, and like it gives you like a different dynamic. The storyline outside of it could falters at some points, but like the baseball feels good. Same thing with 42. I think it all comes out really good. And then the other one, I think I'm surprised it hasn't been taken yet, is The Natural, which is funky, but it's a good baseball movie.
It is. It's just it's one I've seen, so I could say I've seen it, and it's like, okay, yeah, I get it, but it's not going in the rewatch pile necessarily. I'll see bits and pieces here.
I feel the same. It's not one that I'm going to pull out and be like, if I have like an option of like 10 movies, I got to watch 10 baseball movies. It's going to be right on that like 10 cusp of like, okay, I guess I have to watch a movie, but The Natural is it's good enough that I think it warrants being on the list, I guess.
All right. So I've got a bunch here that I still, like I said, that I want. I'm just not sure.
I got one I'm mad I didn't pick, but
so the other thing for anybody who's checking this out later, listening later, I'll post on my sports guy Jason Twitter a poll of these two, and you guys tell us which of the 6 movies is the one that you would rather watch, and I'm going for it. As a Cubs fan, if I didn't pick Rookie of the Year, they might kick me out of the Bleacher Bum Nation.
I love Rookie of the Year. It's great.
I still should throw.
Oh, it was in my thought process. There's another good one too that I like. That's like that was like that too. But I took The Natural because I just figured it was there.
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely an all-time classic baseball movie.
Yeah.
It's hard to have a list of 12 somehow and
It is. It's
not
weird.
make it really. So at least you took it because, like I said, for me it's probably in that 15 to 20 range. So
I'm with you. It's probably, like I said, cusp of like 12, 13, 14, 15. It could be anywhere in that range.
there's just so many good baseball movies. I think that's the one thing I was looking at this and I'm like, there's so many I wanted to put on the list that didn't even make the list, and luckily you had a few of them. But
Yeah.
it's just so any honorable mentions?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say Rookie of the Year if you hadn't picked it, but one that I think is underratedly good, and I don't know how. I feel like people are like mixed on it, but 61 is really well done. I thought 61 was a really good movie.
No, I agree. That was, again, that's kind of right there with The Natural for me.
Yeah.
I've seen it. It's good. It was well done, but it's not necessarily.
It's not like the rewatch value. I don't think is phenomenal just because like once you know the story, you know the story. But yeah, it's a good watch. Like if I hadn't seen it, I would not be mad having to watch it after I watched it.
So I have quite a few honorable mentions still left. For me, I almost thought about taking it, and then I thought it would be redundant. It was Major League 2.
Yeah,
sneak on there because for a sequel they did a really good job of making it different.
Yeah,
bringing in new.
They did a really good job. Yeah.
So
they changed that movie. They changed that movie, not changed it, but like it had a definitely different feel. Like you could almost watch that as like without watching one and get the gist of one, and then just you don't even have to watch one. And I think those are the best sequels is when you don't necessarily have to watch the first movie, but the first movie is good enough that you would want to watch it. So I think those are the best sequels.
Any others you feel like you
left out? I pulled up a list of like top baseball movies. I don't think there's any that I feel like I'm like I have to mention or I'm gonna feel like a terrible human being later. But yeah.
So there were I think I still got like 5 more on my list I just put together last night. Now 2 are very baseball adjacent in that category. One's a stretch to call it baseball adjacent, but Brewster's Millions is one of my favorite rewatch. That's tied into baseball.
That is good.
Basketball.
Again,
technically baseball adjacent.
True.
And the kind of the kid baseball movies of that era, Little Big League.
Oh, for sure.
I was going back and forth between that and Rookie of the Year at the end there.
Which I think Little Big League is actually more baseball-y, I think, to be honest with you. And that's also every kid's dream. Like,
right. Let me manage a professional baseball team at like 11.
Yeah, that'd be so awesome. It'd be ridiculous. There's another baseball adjacent. It's not baseball adjacent because they definitely play baseball in it, but like a hardball with Keanu Reeves.
I was gonna say that was on my list yet.
Yeah.
And then I only had 2 more. Trouble with the Curve.
Oh, that's a good one.
I was so close to taking that a couple of
times. It's underrated, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it is a good rewatch as well.
And I almost didn't watch it because I was like, I don't know, it feels like it's gonna be trash. And then I found it in like the $5 bin one day at like Walmart, and I was like, why not? Let me just buy it. And then I watched it, and I was like, this is actually pretty good.
I just found it on TV one day. I was like, oh, okay, I need to watch all of this now. That's all to make sense. Is like, but yeah, it was surprisingly good. And then my last one is kind of a guilty pleasure baseball movie.
Yeah,
and that's Summer Catch.
Oh, dude. Yes, I'm right there with you. I literally watched that movie 7 zillion times. I owned like 3 DVDs when I went off to college to play baseball in college, and Fever Pitch was one. I mean, I'm not Fever Pitch.
Jessica Biel coming out of the pool made it worth it for any reason you went.
And it's Cape Cod League. It's like it's really good, like done, like what they're there for, and
kind of how things can go both right and wrong for people there.
Exactly.
Because it's just such a different experience for those college kids. Nowadays with the newer bats that they use, it's a little different. It's not like
for sure
back when you had the ridiculous aluminum bats out there.
Dude, I will tell you, it's I played in the era where the ridiculous bats were around, and I had a couple balls coming back at me that were. I think about them now, and I'm like, I don't know how I never found fear in like pitching because I had a couple close calls. Like I was like,
No, it was ridiculously dangerous, particularly, once you got to say high school or college level. It's like
oh yeah.
shouldn't be here.
Well,
Like,
the worst part was Little League. I did like an actual research paper on it at one point. Um, Little League was the worst because the mounds are closer, and even though the kids aren't swinging as fast, the bats were so jacked that like the ball was coming off so fast, and kids' reaction times are so terrible at that point. Like that, like those were the kids that were most in trouble, because it's you don't think about it, but how many balls get hit back up towards the pitcher that like they move out of the way of that really they probably got lucky to get out of the way and just because they have good reaction. But
yeah, those old Black Magics were something else back then.
those bats were wild.
Yeah. Again, the fact that we were ever allowed to use something like that, it's like,
dude,
this thing weighs like 2 ounces.
I lived for I'm a military brat, so I lived for a 3-year span in Omaha, Nebraska. And so we went to Rosenblatt so many times to watch the College World Series, and just to see those balls just fly. I mean, I was in the stands when Warren Morris hit the walk-off for LSU to win.
Okay.
And it was like one of my favorite baseball memories. I love that.
Yeah, that would be cool to do sometime. I still haven't made most of the major league stadiums. That's one of my goals, is to get to all 30 before. Well, I guess it'll be more than 30 because I made sure to make it up to Montreal before the Expos went away. That was an experience. Stade Olympic. Oh my. Because by then there was nobody there,
Yeah.
So I go to Wrigley. I always sit in the left field bleachers. I'm like, and I'll get a left field outfield ticket. And it was Braves Expos. I didn't even, because it's when I could get off work. I didn't even go to a Cubs game, but it was when Chipper Jones was playing.
That's awesome.
Out in left field. So me, the guy I went with, and the guy sitting next to us, because somehow in a stadium of maybe 1,000 people, we're still sitting next to people.
Yeah, right.
Just decided to spend the whole game calling him a Larry nonstop. And again, he hears because it's so quiet. 7th inning, he finally just turns around and flips us off. It's like, all right, we did our job. I can go home now.
Hey, you got flipped off by Chipper Jones. That's pretty awesome. You can't beat that.
And again, it started. I can't remember the old writer for Sports Illustrated.
Peter King?
No, Rick Riley.
Oh, Rick Riley. Yeah.
He did an article about going up there and being one of the dozens and dozens in attendance. I'm like, all right, I got to do that.
It's wild. I think I'd have to look it up, but I think my old high school teammate was the last first round pick for the Montreal Expos.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then they became the Nationals, and he made his major league debut as a National.
Get the distinction of being an Expo without having to actually play. although again, another reason I went up there is because John Kruk notoriously talked about how wonderful the adult ballets were in Montreal, and I can agree, they were fantastic.
Well, I'll take your word on that one. I haven't been to those in Montreal, but I
generally not a fan, but it was a good trip.
I assume I've been to some weird ones. It's never been my cup of tea. Not that I judge the people who is their cup of tea, but I'm just like, a lot of times, like, well, when I became of age, it was in Virginia Beach, and in Virginia Beach, you can't even get naked at them. So it's like, there's no point. You're like, you live on the beach, you can see almost more of the beach than you can going. You're like, what's the point?
Yeah, as I say, Indiana, the same way. If it serves alcohol, which is pretty much all of them, then you can't get naked. It's like, what are you going for? You're spending a whole lot of money for nothing.
Exactly. No, I think, but yeah, I mean, baseball and strip clubs go together pretty well.
Yeah. We're going to go to work at 7 p.m. and then do nothing for a whole night.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then if you're on a getaway day, which like the game I went to was, game was 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 o'clock. I was like,
oh yeah.
Hey, we're good.
They're the best ones to go to be honest with you, though. Like, you go to those like 1, 2 o'clock games, there's usually generally less people anyway. But then if you're going to see the Expos play, I mean, there's probably like almost nobody.
Oh yeah, I think the ticket was $6 Canadian.
Oh,
at the time. It's like, wait, I'm going to a major league game. I mean, not granted, when I first started going to Cubs games, they were pretty bad.
Yeah.
And people hadn't really bought into the nostalgia of Wrigley at that point, so I could get bleacher tickets for $15 week of the game.
Yeah,
It's like now if I get it for under 50, it's a miracle.
it's crazy. I will tell you that like basketball tickets. I mean, we just bought basketball tickets for Christmas for the kids, and I mean they were ridiculous. I mean, you're just like, I don't think you can go to more than a few games, maybe a year, like at that price. I don't know how people have season tickets. I mean, you got to be like Warren Buffett to freaking afford it.
So I think the only sport where regular folks are going to be able to have season tickets anymore is going to be football. And that's just because there's so few games.
Yeah. And those are ridiculously expensive, but people, it's only eight or nine games, depending on how many home games they have for that year. Now with the 17 game schedule.
But you know what? Even then, like we had them at Notre Dame here in our family for years, and we finally let them go. It was so. In addition to buying the tickets for the 6 games at $120 a ticket,
yeah,
you had to pay a $1,500 donation per ticket to the building fund.
Oh, that's crazy.
So you know, it's like high def TV, free replays, free replays, free cheap food.
In football, I mean, and it may be like I think maybe at college it's a different level, but like at the NFL level, I'm like, dude, it's like I've been to a few NFL games. I almost prefer watching them on TV, to be honest with you. I mean,
yeah, I still have to go to one Steelers game at some point just to say I've been there. But again, I think the speed of the game makes it so good for TV.
It's just so. But college is a little different because you have like the crazy atmosphere of like everybody's pulling for one. Mostly because it's usually you don't get a lot of out of town fans because of the college nature of it. It's that youthful excitement that like you go in and you're like, okay, this is pretty cool.
IU was not that way at all.
No,
no, it was there. I went to one game.
Well, my co-host on my co-host on my podcast is a Notre Dame fan, so I feel like Notre Dame, even if they're not great, like they have that fan base that like seems to be pretty diehard. So
Notre Dame's a good experience. IU, which is where I went to college, not a good experience for football. Great for basketball though.
They have a good baseball program too. IU.
Yeah, I've finally got. I mean, we're good. They're actually really one of the best programs in soccer. Really great in baseball. Basketball's been hit or miss lately, but football's just always been bad. Can never get it right.
It's weird how like that happens. I mean, especially I'm trying to think in like, where do the kids in Indiana go to college? Like,
I don't think we have a lot of great football players.
Oh, okay.
A lot of times when they're good, they end up down in the SEC.
Makes sense.
The last two. The last 3 big recruits out of the state of Indiana, at least that I can remember, have all ended up in the SEC, and that's Rex Grossman out of Bloomington North went to Florida.
Yep.
Jay Cutler out of Santa Claus went to Vanderbilt, and then I can't think of the kid's name that went from Ben Davis anymore. He was a quarterback who switched to wide receiver. He went to Tennessee.
Oh yeah.
But those were the last 3 like really big recruits. I mean, like you get some kids that are linemen in that they could tend to go to Notre Dame or
Well, it's crazy too because we've had some Indiana guys on the man-to-man pod. I want to say Terry McLaurin is from Indiana.
Okay,
and so is Jeremy Chin, and both those guys. I think one of them went to Southern Illinois.
Yeah,
and I don't remember where Terry McLaurin went, to be honest with you.
But they always tend to be more under the radar guys who sneak up.
Yeah, and those guys are pretty good pros. I mean, can't beat them.
No, I'd take their job. I mean, I guess. Well, yeah, no, that's kind of it.
Well, it's crazy too because I want to say one of them. Maybe I want to say one of them. I'll have to go back and listen to it, but I think one of them said that Indiana didn't even offer them a scholarship.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. Not at all. It's just not a football school.
Which is wild too, because like you hear those stories, right? And you're like, my daughter's kind of not going through it now, but like she's 8th grader. I have a 9th grader too, but my 8th grader is the one that's like diehard basketball, like, and she'll talk about it, and she's like, she wants to go to a certain school, UConn, which is where everyone goes or whatever. But like, you got like these like schools where I'm like, if that school offered you, like, you would say no, like you're like that's crazy, like, but like, or like, could you imagine like having a school like in state, like we live in Colorado, it's like I want to go to Colorado, and like you're right here in the hometown, and like Colorado just like is like, we're not going to offer you, but then like a bigger school offered, like,
yeah,
you're like, Just because they don't. I wonder if some of those schools think like that. They're like, oh, we're not going to get them, so we're not going to offer it. You're like, maybe that's their dream school.
You don't know. Maybe they want mom and dad to be able to see them play
Yeah.
6 times a year.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. So it's wild. College recruiting is so triipy.
I've had a few friends who went through it when they were playing sports, and it's different. Particularly, I had some who were pretty good grade wise, and some who were non-qualifiers, and it's a crazy experience.
It
I was
is definitely a crazy experience.
Never a good enough athlete to ever be considered for any of that, though. So
it's funny. It's trippy because I ended up with 18 Division I offers to play baseball, and then I ended up playing at a junior college, and then it was probably the worst decision I ever made, mostly because I felt I was good enough to go pro after 1 year. College baseball is very strange. If you go to a junior college, you can go pro after 1 year. If you go to Division I, you have to wait 3 years.
Yeah.
I was impatient because I was 18, and of course you don't see the long-termness of shit. And so I went there. Coaches ended up being, I think if I had gone to a bigger program, maybe would have done a little more research. I have a disease called Ehlers-Danlos, which means basically I have like really loose joints. So I could basically throw 100 pitches every day and never have a problem. My college coach made everybody lift weights because they're big and strong. And I'm like, this isn't what's good for me. And so he butted heads with me on that. And then that's ended up being what really kind of caused my arm issues and started the problem with it, and got slight tears. And then because it never really healed because of the lifting, ended up tearing and then tore it again. And so, yeah. So if I had gone to a bigger program, maybe I'm playing baseball right now.
It's crazy to think about the little things along the way.
38-year-old making like $4 million just to throw like 2 innings probably as a closer because I thrown 89, 90 still.
John Franco did it till he was 45, 46.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Teams inside him right before the playoffs, like, hey, you can still get Barry Bonds out, right? Yeah. Good. Got a spot for you. Here's $1 million for the playoffs.
For 9 innings. We just need you 9 innings. There you go. It's crazy.
We're gonna have you face one guy.
Well, now they have to face 3 guys at least?
3-9.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good time to transition into the baseball lockout talk, because we're already kind of talking some of the minutia of baseball, CBA and rule changes, and I think
definitely.
I think that's going to be some of the big issues with the lockout, and it's. I mean, for me, it's kind of a strange one because it's the players don't have a lot to bargain for anymore in baseball. Like they have little things, right? So, I dug out a thing I had wrote back in 2018, and I never posted it, and I meant to find a blog somewhere to post it, or even just post it somewhere. And then I wrote about how people make such a big deal out of the service time manipulation by baseball teams. And then you really get down to it every year. It's like 2 or 3 guys.
Yeah.
Like, 2 or 3 guys in April, 2 or 3 more guys in September. And if you're not a baseball nerd, service time is the standard by which you get credit for having played in a major league season.
Yeah.
It matters because under the old CBA, you needed 6 seasons of service time to qualify for free agency, and 3 years of service time to qualify for arbitration, which is where you start to make more money. Unless you were, of course, and this is where the September guys came in, the Super 2 rule.
Yeah.
The top 22% of 2-year arbitration eligible guys. And again, they pick these weird numbers. I think it's like 172 days out of the baseball season. Yeah, 172 days out of the baseball season. If you're on the active roster disabled list, it counts as a season.
Yeah.
Of course, again, even the big market teams, even the Cubs, it made sense to hold Chris Bryant back 15 days. To get that extra entire season.
That was the one I think of, because I think that was like the most recent one that I was like super obvious that he should have been on the roster.
Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Ronald Acuna, those were a couple I had listed as well. But again, it comes down to less than 0.1% of baseball players. Like,
definitely.
So yeah, they're talking a lot. Hey, maybe we'll go to 29.5. Well, but then that kind of messes with guys like Bryce Harper, who took his GED at 16. like you said, went to junior college for 1 year so he could get drafted a year early at
Yeah.
17 and get to the big league sooner to get to free agency sooner. And it paid off very well for him.
Yeah.
You know, I think he has 300 million reasons to prove he made the right decision.
Yeah. No, for sure. And it's, I don't know. It's weird because now having working with guys that played professional sports, I do understand how different it is to be a team as compared to be a player in the business of it all. Um, so I can see where the players are coming from, but also at the same time, it's like, I mean, most of these guys get paid so astronomically well, especially in baseball for what they do, because there's no salary cap really, there's no hard cap. So it's like if you prove yourself, you're gonna make the money in the long run. Like a guy uh like a guy I'll use Antoine Bethea as an example, like for football. Like Antoine Bethea was really good. He was a 6th round draft choice. Came in, started immediately. They won a Super Bowl his rookie year. Like has a literally Hall of Fame level like stats. If you look at his stats, he has a Hall of Fame level, like amazing safety. Like he could, I think if you look at his first I think it's like 6 years or something like that, 5 years, he made like I think like at best, I think his best year was like maybe like 670,000. And you're like, that guy's like a guy who outperformed his contract. And so like you have some of those guys where you're like, why is Chris Bryant making $1.1 million this year when he won the MVP? You know what I mean? So it's like I get it how like it looks weird, but it's like also in baseball though, if you win that MVP, you're gonna make that massive contract. So it doesn't really matter, even if you have 2 down years after it, someone's gonna pay you like that MVP season for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, once the lockout's done, Chris Bryant's going to see,
Yeah,
a 9-figure contract.
for
Like,
sure.
is so, again, I don't know that that's the focus. If I was the players union, my focus would be on the minor league pay.
For
You know,
sure.
you cut 40 teams out
Mhm.
last year, so that already cuts the overhead there.
Mhm.
And I know some of those cities are trying to sue to get their teams back. It's
Yeah.
like I think there was easily 40 too many minor league baseball teams. Like it
It's
was due for a right sizing.
well, it's crazy too because like the structure of them is so jacked up. I don't understand even how the structure of that was the way it was. Because if you're not a baseball nerd, you probably see the Cubs have 3 minor league teams, whatever, how many ever minor league teams, and you assume that the Cubs own those teams,
But they do not.
but they don't. So it's like stupid and like goofy, and that's why grew up in a lot of minor league cities because for some reason the military has a high presence in minor league cities a lot, and so like Norfolk had the Norfolk Tides. They were the Mets for a long time, and then they switched over to be the Orioles because of contract. We had one here in Colorado Springs. They were for the Rockies. They were the AAA for the Rockies. Then they became the AAA for the Brewers, and then that team just completely went away. And then we got another team that's like a low A ball team. Like so, it's like just goofy. Like the way that whole that first off, those teams should own those, I think, or have some like really lengthy long term contracts, and they should subsidize them to give those players more money. So that way a guy can play and be one brought up slower without having to like overpay somebody in the majors because you had to pull them up for the 5-year rule or whatever. And then on top of that, you would have guys that like a Chris Bryant who could move up faster through the minor league system and then come up and then like still get a better paycheck. Also, I don't think necessarily because you pop into the majors that should trigger a major league contract automatically because it's like, but I think the high A or high AAA, high AA players should have a bigger contract to play in those smaller areas. Like they shouldn't be making 40,000 and then for them to make a roster now they're making 250,000 because then that's all the incentive to cheat and do steroids, all the stuff that like comes into play. Like you scratch that like major league surface and it's a game changer for you.
you're going from 40K to I think the minimum's now like 525
Yeah,
or something.
something
Like
stupid.
like it's a huge jump. And again, I don't necessarily think you need to pay your minor leaguers 525.
No,
But
for
get them to
sure.
at least get your AAA guys to six figures.
Eh,
And your
yeah.
single A guys are making sub minimum wage.
I mean,
Yeah.
those dudes are. I knew a guy
Mm.
who he played 3 months in low A. I want to. It was for the Devil Rays at the time. I think it was Princeton Devil Rays, maybe. And for 3 months, he made. I think it was like $6,000.
Yeah, they're making nothing,
like,
you know.
which is like $2,000 a month. I mean, granted, the team like tried to like hook them up with like host like families and stuff, so they didn't have to pay rent and all that kind of stuff. But still, you're like,
so like South Bend's got a minor league baseball team, and the owner of the team actually does have a very small minority stake in the Cubs.
yeah,
So that's part of why last year during the weird year, South Bend was the taxi squad city. Not just because it was 90 minutes away, because Iowa's not that much farther from Chicago.
yeah,
But when you have that ownership tie-in, it helps. But two, he also owns a set of apartments right outside of the stadium, so he lets some of the guys stay in the apartments
definitely
during the season to help offset that.
Or I mean, even something like that for like, say that's where like I think having a stake in like the team from the major league level would change, right? Because if you have a stake in the team from the major league level and you say, hey, the single A South Bend Cubs or whatever they're called, I don't know what they're
Cubs,
called.
yeah.
They we own part of that team. Our players are going to come up through that. We're going to buy the land across from the stadium. We're going to put up like 15, 20 duplexes, rent free. Boom, here you go. I mean, makes sense.
There ain't a major league team who couldn't afford to do that.
No,
not a single one.
Shit, I mean, there's major league players that can afford to do that.
Quite a few of them, but
it's crazy.
So I mean, to me, that's where the players have to focus. I know some of the rule changes are going to be discussed, and they don't technically have to be, but I think we've seen from this commissioner that he prefers to
for sure
to negotiate as opposed to just say, "Hey, here you go."
I don't mind some of the rule changes, by the way.
No, I think
he has put it,
and I think you have to. You're living in a cave if you don't think you have to improve pace of play in this day and age to keep baseball relevant. I mean,
for sure.
Like it can't be 3.5 hour games. People aren't tuning in for that. They're not gonna.
Especially if you get a pitcher's duel, it's gonna just be long, and people are gonna be like, I want home runs, or whatever. But the pitch clock makes sense. I've never seen it really be an issue in any game that I've been to, but it has sped up the pace of play, which is good. It's just enough. Like
right. No, it is. It's little things like that. All right. We're gonna make you pitch to 3 guys instead of 1.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with this. There are some that I'm worried about, because the shift rule. You're trying to ban the shift. I hate that. Like,
yeah.
I'm sorry if you are a big league hitter and you can't hit around a shift, that is on you.
It's wild. It's wild.
Like that's not a rule thing. Like, first off, all you have to do if they're shifting, punt right down third base, take the free base. Like, don't be too proud. Don't have the ego. And somebody showed it, tweeted out a picture that showed, I mean, when Babe Ruth was playing, they were shifting Babe Ruth. Like, this isn't new. I mean, granted, it is much more pervasive than it used to be.
It's wild now. I mean, but that's the thing, though. It's part of the game. I mean, that'd be like saying, I mean, I'll be honest with you. It's the same issue I have sometimes with football. I hate an illegal formation in football. Like, don't give me a fucking illegal formation. I don't
have
care
11 guys
what
on
the
the
fucking
field.
formation.
Where are they?
If you want 3 people, if you're the Packers and you come out with 3 offensive linemen and somehow make it work, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter to me.
Well, let creativity run. And again, you're going to lose more than you're going to win sometimes on those. So
yeah. And it creates, and again, if you're a Major League Baseball player, I've been to Major League games where like there's one dude, super like shallow outfield, like on the left side of the field, and everybody's basically on the right side of the field. You have so much real estate to just put a ball anywhere over there. If you can't do that, you deserve to get out.
Right. Like, I get it. You want to hit the home run, but sometimes just take the free base they're giving you.
dude. And the thing is, all you'd have to do is do it a couple times. I mean, and they'll be like, okay, well, we can't play it like that. I mean,
No, that is exactly it. Once you prove to them, then hey, I'm just gonna take what you're giving me. They're gonna stop.
but
They
then
wouldn't
some of
have
these
to.
guys' spray charts are like 99.9% to the one side. You're like, what do you guys? Yeah, of course they're gonna play you there. Like the odds say this dude's gonna hit it over here 99.9% of the time. We'll take the 0.1% chance.
Hey, we're giving it to you. If you get it, great. If not, we're gonna boost our odds getting this out. That's our job.
Yeah,
But, I'm not for the universal DH. I understand it, but I'm not for it.
I actually, I, I don't love the DH, to be honest with you. Like,
Oh no, I wish they would even it out by just getting rid of the DH. Like,
I could see that. By the way, that would speed up the game too.
Players will never sign off on that though.
No,
Too much money in those jobs.
Oh my god, yeah, for sure. And the crazy thing is though, that's what I do like about the fact that there are two different leagues. Like in the NFL, I'll take it back to the NFL again. The AFC and the NFC are the same.
Yeah.
Like there's no weird rule difference or whatever. Like, could you imagine if it was like in the if an AFC team played at an NFC team stadium, they had to play where they always had a fullback or something. You know what I mean? Like
it'd be strange.
It'd be strange, but it's part of the game, right?
No
like,
nickel defenses.
Yeah, or something that's like specific to like the one league, which is like when I almost just said NFC. When one side comes over and they have to play with the DH, that's an advantage. But then the other side, when your pitcher has to hit, it's a disadvantage. So it's like you take the good with the bad. So
I did ruin all those classic, good old fashioned rotisserie baseball leagues. That the NL only, where the player went to die on the other side.
Yeah,
Like,
and then on top of it, I mean, like there's pitchers that can hit. So
I mean, again, I'm a Cubs fan. I got to watch Kerry Wood hit a home run in the World Series.
Yeah,
or well, no, NLCS. Sorry.
And then you guys had what was his name? There was another guy that you guys had a hit.
Guy we got from Baltimore.
Why can't I think of his name?
Jake Arrieta.
Jake Arrieta hits pretty good. Mike Hampton back in the day. Like, I mean, like,
and then you just get the awesome moments of guys who can't hit. Like, Bartolo Colon hitting his first career home run at 40?
Yeah.
Like, it's just ridiculous how bad the swing was, but somehow he just, was able to put the bat on the ball with just the right speed. It's just like, wow.
And then you got guys who are wasted in the AL essentially. I mean, I don't know how it works. How does it work? This tells you how little of the actual games I've watched for the Angels, but like when Shotani pitches, can he hit for himself? Can he be his own DH?
I don't know why he couldn't be. I just don't think they do. I think they, but again, yeah, why wouldn't you at that point? Like, I mean, you're DHing him on the days, usually 3 out of his 4 days off.
Yeah. You're like, why not? So,
and again, I don't understand why he picked in that. I still don't understand why he picked an American League team. Like, and the Angels of all teams, like they have 2 of the best players in baseball, period. And they are terrible. Like, I think that's where the fun for me at baseball is, sure, if you're the Dodgers and you're throwing out $300 million payroll, sure, you can buy a championship. Although I still put an asterisk next to their COVID World Series. Like, baseball is 162 games. If you can't do it during the marathon, it's, sorry.
I don't mind it. I wouldn't put an asterisk next to it just because I'm like, it's still tough to win a title, but it doesn't, like, if you're going to tell me like a guy like, take it back to football again. If you have a strike shortened season and Aaron Rodgers wins a Super Bowl in that season, and then like Matt Stafford wins one in a regular long term, and they each have one, I'm gonna count Matt Stafford as higher than.
Maybe it's like a 0.5 championship for the Dodgers. Like, I'm sure you guys celebrated it like it was real, and then you get to market it like it was real, but it's right there with the Lakers bubble championship. Like, that interrupted season, like it bothered me. Like, like. Part of what you were seeing with both Anthony Davis and LeBron is they were wearing down during that season. Like, getting a break to refresh was a big difference in who won that. And the bubble experience was just different altogether. But
it was definitely weird. Yeah. And
You
that's I
know,
mean that's part of this going to be this like weird the thing that people don't talk about a lot. I guess average I don't know if there's an average baseball fan. I think you're either in it or like you might go to see games, but you're either usually most people are pretty into it. But like people who know what baseball is and know like the names, but don't necessarily know the history. Like I mean, there was like a whole like span of years where like Ted Williams was throwing grenades in World War II. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like
like guys like Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio missed seasons.
yeah,
Go fight the Nazis.
yeah.
Like, yeah, I will be back. Oh, you need me in Korea? Sure, gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like so, it's like baseball's got these weird like little like
Oh,
jut outs that like happen.
and that's where a league of their own came from. You know,
Yeah,
the women's professional baseball league was
yeah.
born out of the men being in the war.
You know, and speaking of that, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm a big proponent, obviously, of I'm a big WNBA fan. I'm a big proponent of like women having sports. I think the biggest problem I have with like every time they try to do it with football is like they try to make it like either sexy or something
Oh,
stupid,
yeah,
and it's just cringy. Like you're like,
yeah, no, it's awful. It's like if we're gonna do women's football, do women's football. Like I'm sure you could find enough women who want to play real football.
yeah,
Like, yeah, we get it. It's not going to be as big and fast and strong, but I bet you would still be entertaining.
but does it need to be though? Like
No,
that's the thing that kills me about people who like don't like the WNBA. They're like, oh, like no one's dunking. I'm like,
yeah, which are the same
okay.
people who complain that the guys in the NBA have no skills anymore because all they do is dunk.
Yeah.
It's like,
It
wait, you
or the
missed the
same
mid
league that
range.
celebrates Steph Curry who dunks maybe once a year.
You're missing. You're missing. You can play in the mid range games. Missing for basketball. Well, go watch WNBA. It's alive and well there.
Oh,
You know,
live and
not
well,
every.
yeah.
You know, there's a lot of good basketball there. A lot of good fundamentals. You know,
Yeah. And I think baseball or even a softball league, if someone did it right, I know there is professional softball leagues. It's just
but
not
no.
like everything's marketing. I think, especially nowadays and age, I think this is the best time for a women's league to thrive because you can make a grassroots social media marketing campaign and get people out. If you have a big enough star, like luckily the WNBA has big enough stars that pull enough people in. I don't know that like I don't know that there's like a Jenny Finch right now going
No,
for
you know, yeah, as I say, that's that you had Jenny Finch and Kat Osterman back when
yeah
we were winning the golds. You know,
Monica Abbott's and
yeah,
stuff like that. Like I mean, you have like some names, but it's like
obviously Jessica Mendoza who made the crossover, but again,
yeah,
they're all retired now. Like, and it shouldn't be that. Like, I don't know why our softball program fell off the way it did. Like,
yeah. And it's weird too because like especially like in other sports, like say in action sports or something like that, like women's skateboarding is sort of similar. Like women will like guys will or people will watch guys um like park runs more than like women's, but like the women have they also have some big stars, so like they draw eyes. So it's like I just capitalize on it. The talent is still there. Maybe they're not doing the craziest extent, but it's like sometimes I think like people like me who's like I've skateboarded, but like I gave it up when I was younger, so I enjoy skateboarding. I'm looking at some of the things the dudes are doing, and I'm like, that doesn't seem real. Like it seems weird. But like I'm like, some of the stuff like the women are doing, you're like, that doesn't seem real, but it seems a little more feasible. Like, you know, like so like
like,
I can relate a little bit more. Like
yeah, I'm not hitting 50 shots from half court, but I
yeah.
can put together a layup line and
And by the way, I
take
don't want
away.
that to be misconstrued. I can't beat a single WNBA player.
No,
So
no, not at all.
I don't want that to be misconstrued. I hate when dudes do that shit. And I'm
No, you could like
I mean, if you played NBA, maybe you can make that claim. Like I think there's some NBA
even if
guys
you
that
played
probably
college ball, I think you can make that claim because, but beyond that, yeah, you're not. No,
I think
you're still top level athletes.
yeah. I mean, I still think there's a lot of dudes that play college basketball. Unless you played at like maybe a top program or something. There's a lot of dudes that play college basketball that could probably still get beat by WNBA players. Like, I mean,
Sure.
it'd have to be a size comparison. I think that's where you get
Yeah,
in trouble. Like if you have a guy 6'8" who has a decent jumper, he's probably going to beat a lot of the women just because of height. But
shoot
yeah,
right over the top. Yeah,
but
no, but
it's
again,
competitive. Those women have like a ton of skill. It's ridiculous.
no, if you don't enjoy the WNBA, you just don't enjoy basketball. I'm sorry.
I don't understand the comparison. That's the thing that kills me. Right? That'd be like It'd be like imagine a women's baseball league starting up right today, and then people would be like 5 years from now being like, "Why aren't they as big as baseball?" And you're like, "Well, baseball's been around for 125 years. Like,
Right.
like
Like it takes time to
takes
build a
time."
league. Like no matter what push it has or what branding it has, it still takes time. And again, I get that it's in the summer because a lot of the higher paying professional leagues play in the
Yeah,
winter, but like it hurts the WNBA not to be, you know,
yeah,
to just say, hey, we're going to make the commitment for the next 5 years and outpay the Russian league or the
yeah.
Australian league for you to come play here.
Well, the crazy thing is that they made. So speaking of CBA's baseball, that they just had a good CBA bump last year where like some of the top players are making like can make like 500,000 now playing, and then the lowest, I guess the average almost doubled from like 45 to like 88 or something like that. So they definitely made some strides, which is good long term. But like, when it started, it was a league where like a lot of the NBA teams owners owned the team, but like I don't know why like a team like say LA, the Sparks, right? Sparks get, I guess, pretty good, people coming in. But like we were just talking earlier, tickets are so damn expensive now. Could you imagine playing the WNBA literally basically coinciding with the WNBA and NBA and then double headering them? You buy one ticket for $50 and you get to see both.
Yeah. Now you're getting value for your dollars. You're
Yeah.
going to draw a lot more eyes to your women's league and give them a chance to grow and thrive.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, it's all TV dollars.
Yeah.
And summertime TV is just awful.
It's so
Like
tough. People are outside.
like they're out. Kids are playing baseball or soccer. Families are out camping. They're on vacation somewhere. They're not sitting and watching basketball.
Which
Other
is
than
why I do say I think now is the day and age where a league could take off if done right because of all the streaming stuff or like being able to like record games and watch them later, all that kind of stuff. Making fantasy leagues out of them, daily fantasy, the gambling aspect, all of that stuff. Like,
oh yeah, I mean, and that's I just can't imagine how sports are going to continue to deal with the revenue end of that because I mean that's part of baseball's issue, right? Is the players just don't trust any of the numbers the owners throw out,
yeah,
and
right.
and they have every reason to not trust them. Every time
Yeah.
the owners have just flat out lied to them, and it's like, if the other thing the players really, I think, kind of going back to the CBA, is what teams are doing with the revenue sharing dollars.
Yeah.
Like we know there are franchises like Bob Nutting running the Pirates who just banks that money away. The Oakland A's payroll has been significant, typically less than their share of the revenue sharing dollars.
I mean, we literally celebrate Moneyball because
Right.
that's them really not spending money.
It's like, so, and I know the players are hesitant to embrace a minimum salary floor because they know then the owners are going to ask for something
Definitely.
in return. And the owners are 100% wrong to be asking for the luxury tax or competitive balance tax to be $180 million just because they picked the number out of the air. It's like,
Yeah.
no, it needs to be tied to revenue.
Well, that's the crazy part is like, that's the thing where like, to shuffle back to that WNBA for a second, a lot of people misconstrue when those women came out and they were like, "Hey, we want our fair shake," and people were like, "Yeah, you shouldn't get paid what LeBron James gets paid. It's a totally different league." They weren't asking for that. They were making like 15% of the revenue share, whereas the NBA makes like a 52%.
No, the WNBA was making the same kind of revenue share that the UFC fighters make out of the UFC.
Yeah.
That 15-17% range where most major sports are in that 48 to 52 range, which is
Definitely.
again, no matter how you look at it, yeah, you're the owner, they're the player, but you're partners in this. Like
and long-term success, I don't know. Dana White's done a good job at somehow keeping the train moving while that's been a discussion for a long time. I think eventually if something does take down the UFC, it will be that though.
Yeah.
Some
100%.
league will come around. Jeff Bezos will get too jacked up and be like, I'm gonna start a fucking UFC league and pay everybody ridiculous amounts of money. Maybe that could happen, but like, I mean, you need competition. And the problem is that UFC has no real competition, or I mean, they don't.
I think it's that one's going to come down to their antitrust lawsuit that's still working its way through because I mean Mark Cuban's tried to break through into the fight promoting and it's just with the contracts in the UFC they tie up such all the top guys for so long to such terrible contracts that unless you're a Conor McGregor or a Nate Diaz or somebody who can just flat out hold them over a barrel and be like, look, I want to share the pay per view, I want to share the gate. Sure,
Yeah.
you can post that my salary for the day was 250,000. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because that's nowhere close to what I'm taking home.
The crazy part about it is like that it seems to be the issue on every major thing. And so the big part of it, I'm a big music guy. I don't know if you are, Jason. But like I just and I knew bad contracts are bad contracts. You see that you behind the music showed that like very clearly to people. But like Alicia Keys just released a record, and it's the first time she's been able to be an independent artist in 20 years because that record, which I believe is like her 7th or 8th, finally fulfilled her original contract.
Oh yeah, I mean they're talking. Same thing with like you said, same thing. They're 5, 6, 7 fight deals, 5, 6, 7 record deals, and again pennies on the dollar. And in the streaming era, it's even worse for artists.
But the crazy part is the streaming era is bad for an artist, but also at the same time, like there's pivots that can be made to like making money other ways. Whereas like a record contract, if it says 8 records, they can literally prolong how long it takes for you to release a record because they decide when it gets released. Right. So it's like so fucked up.
And again, it's a one-sided contract. Like if you're not selling, gone you go. We're not giving you record number 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean, there's so many crazy like things that are like astronomically like strange, like when it comes to like music, like and a guy that like just because I remember hearing it and remember seeing it was like Toby Keith released or recorded a record. It got shelved. This is before he was like Toby Keith that we all know him now. He literally paid something like took a gamble on himself. I think paid like $20,000, and he was not a big artist. Somehow scrounged up $20,000, bought his masters and his way out of his contract, which they were like, "Yeah, we'll take the 20,000 because we're not going to use you. We don't think you're going to be shit, so whatever." And then on that, the reason he bought it was because his big breakthrough hit, which was like what was it? It's the one where he's on like a football field. He's talking to like
how do you like me now?
Yeah, how do you like me now? That was on that, and he was like, "I got a feeling that's it." And that's the reason, that was what drove him to it, and he bought it, and he made more because he basically partnered into a record deal where he was 50-50 owners of it. And so he made so much astronomical money, so it worked out in his favor. But there's so many stories like that where fighters get shelved or don't get used or like don't get promoted, because that's the one thing about UFC is it's not necessarily a linear to the top per se, like a boxing where like the guy who's undefeated is fighting the guy who's undefeated until neither one of them's undefeated. It's like
eventually you're going to see Fury versus Wilder, whether they want to do it or not. Like it's going to happen.
The money's going to get so big that they're like, yeah, we have to. And the crazy part is if you fight if you have a good fight and it's a good trilogy, you're in that trilogy, you're making so much money. Whereas like even a trilogy in the UFC, those guys aren't really seeing that payday. Like
it's just not like the only trilogy that'll ever make the fighters money. And again, they still haven't done 3 is Nate and Connor.
Yeah.
Because again, they both just are in a position to have the UFC over the barrel where it's just like,
yeah,
sure.
And that's the thing is like your position in life and your position in like where you're at and like what you sign really does make a difference. And when there's options, then you can drive up the market value, which is, I think, really, if you look back, that's how the NBA got to where the NBA was. They had the ABA and the NBA. Same thing with the NFL. They had the NFL and the AFL. Like every time you see these big leagues that like volcano up, it's because there's 2 leagues that have to become one. And in doing so, there has to be this weird collective bargaining that where the owners are kind of like offset. So
how are we going to make this work? And it's all right, Pittsburgh, you're going to the AFL now. Like, all right, how much money are you giving? All right, that works.
Well, and then the crazy part is like, even with football, like I know like it's a there's so much lineage like built in, but I think now with the 17th game, it would have been perfect for them to take those old rivalry games, make that the 17th game, and restructure demographically.
Yeah,
Like,
I think.
I mean, because it makes no sense. Like, I mean, the AFC North. Part of the reason why the AFC North is so good is because those teams are so close.
Yeah,
Like
no, I mean, you can
geographically.
make every one of those trips. You can drive to every city
Yeah.
to watch any game, home or away.
But then you got like New England, you got the Buffalo Bills, you got the Jets, kind of, and then you got the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, like,
Like,
one of these is not like the
you're
other.
like, why is the Jets and the Giants just not in the same division? Like, just put them. They're right there.
Yeah.
Those kind of things where you're like, just make those things like make more sense, and then you would have a better like. Because I think ultimately at the end of the day, with how much talent there is with the NFL, they're going to have to expand to more teams eventually.
Well, and again, like you said, divisions. You just look at even at was it the NFC East, where somehow Dallas is in the NFC East.
Yeah.
Like, in what world is Dallas East?
It doesn't make any sense. Like you
Come
got
on.
the Eagles, you got
The
the
Colts
Washington
are in the
football
AFC
team.
South.
Yeah. Or the Jaguars on the AFC. Well, I guess that's technically true. I mean, but even that whole division's jacked up. You got Houston, you got Jacksonville, you got Tennessee, and then you got like Indiana.
Yeah,
It's like what the
they definitely need to at some point. Like, nobody cares about the AFC NFC anymore. Like,
no.
yeah, you're right. There are a few rivalries you don't want to lose, but
Yeah.
you
But
still lost some when you went from 5 to 4 team
yeah.
divisions anyway. So
Yeah. Like, I mean, but even that was trippy. And that was like them moving in the right direction. It was the Packers, the Lions, the Bears, the Vikings, and Tampa Bay.
yeah,
Like
like
one of these things, not like the other one,
like I get sometimes when you expand, there's just an odd team and you're going to throw them where there's a spot, but it's like,
yeah. But that's the thing is like I would like if I was the NFL, I'd say, listen, we have a lot of talent, and there's also a lot of not great talent. But like I think there's enough good talent that like if you did it right, you either got to make a minor league team or some minor league structure in the NFL, or expand to 4 more teams, restructure that thing.
and I'm not a soccer person at all. Do not watch your. But boy, would it not make NFL football much more fun if there was a 32 team NFL and like an 8-team feeder league where their promotion and relegation was a real thing. Like,
Dude, oh
hey,
my
Detroit,
god.
you're going to be terrible for a decade.
Yeah.
You're going to get relegated. We're going
Dude.
to let you build up through the draft still. But guess what? It's going to be on the minor system.
So I'm glad you brought that up because like literally I did a video for a podcast. It's called the Swiss Army Man podcast. And I did this whole video on when they announced they were going to have a 17th game. So this had to be like over a year ago. And I was like, what would you do? And the thought was take these rivalries or take these like sort of similar rivalries and try to put them in a neutral city, like a college town or something like that. And like literally that was like at the end of it, I even talked about it. I was like, or create a whole kind of feeder system where like you have like a 12 team and then an 8 team and then maybe even like a 6 team. And you have multiple tiers and there's relegation to it. Because having this Jacksonville Jaguars be god awful, having the Lions be god awful, having the same teams be god awful kind of hurts the league.
Yeah, the NFL is just such its own monster, and being able to survive that though, it's crazy.
And it'd be the same thing with baseball too. Baseball could probably do well again with a relegation system because you'd have to have a guy like who owns the Pittsburgh be competitive enough to stay in the daily.
Right. Well, and that's exactly it. That's what prevents any of these teams in Europe, and that's part of why some of them wanted to start that stupid Super League or whatever, because they didn't want to have to face that fear of being relegated.
Right.
It's like, no, these are the rules of the game. Like, if you're not good enough, you don't get to play.
Yeah.
And it's getting into the European League and then the Super League and all of the stuff, Champions League, and is too much.
But the good thing is that in that system, like, and I think we've probably all played FIFA enough. If you've ever played FIFA, like you like literally could buy like you can own a team that's like in the last series and you can win your way up into the top league if you really want to. Like, I mean, if you
if you want to put the money in time into it, you can build your team up.
Which would be kind of cool if you think about that, like in the form of like any either be football, whatever. Like again, I just use him because he has a ridiculous amount of money. But like, say Jeff Bezos is like, I want to own an MLB team, and there's this relegation system. I'm going to buy the Sacramento Bat Wings or whatever the fuck their name. I don't know. Like, and then he like was like, hey, I know it's double A technically, but Albert Pujols, when you're like at the top of your game, like I'm gonna pay you $50 million. You know, like whatever. Like
Baseball would be the perfect sport for it the way it has. I mean, in theory, it has all of the structure already set up.
yeah,
Low A, high A, double A, triple A, big leagues. Like,
yeah,
oh, guess what? Pittsburgh, you're gonna suck.
yeah,
You're gonna suck at triple A. Oh, you still suck? Gonna suck at double A.
yeah.
Oh, now
It's
you're gonna spend some money to
it's
win your way back
absurd.
up.
And the crazy part about it is I don't think MLS has that. MLS doesn't have the same relegation system, but it has like it's like called like Series 2 or something like that. We have a local team here, and they went from using like the high school field to they bought a field that was already kind of there next to the minor league stadium, baseball stadium, and they built that up and they got good attendance. And they just built, like, I think this was the first year they were in it. They built a massive stadium downtown, and like they're becoming a more competitive team. So like I think with that, I think the MLS has brought up a couple of those Series 2 teams as their expansion teams. So it's like they're trying to become a team, an actual team. They're like, we're trying to become an MLS team. Like that's what we're shooting for. We're not doing things half-assed. We're trying to. Yeah, I think you need more of that because I think a lot of these teams in the MLB and a lot of these teams in the NFL, they get stagnant. I mean, they're just like, we're a team. We're an NFL team. What are you going to do?
Guaranteed so much money from the TV contract. It doesn't matter what we do.
Yeah.
No, and I guess for baseball, the only hard part is developing the young players.
Yeah.
But again, I guess in a relegation system and a promotion, and maybe you draft a whole team of 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, and you start in low A. But hey, as they get older, now you've promoted up as the team develops.
Well, that's the crazy thing. So I know in the English Premier League how they do it, there are no drafts. So it's like literally like you're signing players. So like in theory, like say a guy doesn't want to go to college, but people aren't like viewing him super high, he can go to like that single A team or whatever and maybe make more money than a normal single A player would make because he has a potential of being a better player and he can outplay if he outplays his contract, a team from up top can be like, "Who, that guy's good. Hey, team, we're going to give you $4 million for that player." Now that slower team can now buy more better players. So it's kind of still like a minor league team, but it's not the same. It breaks down the thing that we talked about earlier about one, minor league players either making more money and also being more competitive at the higher level. It kind of serves both purposes, right?
And I know it fixes one of the issues that one of the other issues the players have in the CBA negotiations, which is the tanking issue. When you see big market teams, because whether people want to admit it or not, Houston's like the fourth or fifth biggest TV market in baseball, and the Cubs are 3. And both of those teams took prolonged tanking where they essentially spent no money on payroll.
Yeah.
No, and again, you've seen it. The average contract has actually come down in MLB over the last 2 years. First time ever, because they're either throwing you all of the money or basically, hey, here's a minimum contract, have fun. And there's no incentive to compete in the middle. So they're bringing a lottery style thing. But I think, again, relegation, promotion, just sign everybody. Sure. Does that mean that the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Cubs are going to end up with all of the marquee guys? Yeah.
Yeah.
I can name 100 marquee guys that were marquee draft picks who never panned out.
Well, that's the crazy thing. Earlier when you said, I don't know why Shotani went to the Angels, everyone foregone conclusion. If you go back and read articles when Shotani was coming over, everyone was like, "Oh, he's going to be Yankee. He's going to be Yankee." He straight up was like, "I don't want to play for the Yankees."
The only team he even talked to east of the Mississippi was the Cubs.
Yeah,
and at that point, he wasn't coming east anyways. It's like, sure, maybe he's intrigued by what Epstein and his team can do, but
I think his big thing was he wanted to do what he's doing now, which is hit and play. And there was a lot of teams at the time where we're like, maybe we'll let you try it.
Well, and again, if you'd have known what it was going to be, where it's a 40 home run and a possible 20-game winner at the same time, you're like, oh, sure, we'll go for it. But
I mean,
his is such an odd case when he came over. Like he had literally one more year. If he stayed in Japan one more year, he would have been a free agent, as opposed to having to follow the 6-year service time rules and the maximum contract. It was like, I get it. You want to get here sooner, but man, 1 year, you could wait one more year for a bigger contract because
Well, that's the crazy thing. That's kind of what Ichiro did, wasn't it? Or
yeah, he waited his time to get.
Yeah. Which is nuts. That dude, I mean, might be one of the greatest baseball players of all time. I mean,
I think he could still step in there right now and get you a hit if you asked him to.
dude, I think when he played for I saw him a couple times when he played for the Marlins. Like, I played a lot of daily fantasy, like, I think his last season, baseball. And, like, dude, anytime I would be looking at the lineups and I'd be like, oh, Ichiro's batting 5th today, putting him in. Like, he's like the bare minimum on DFS. I'm like, he's probably getting at least a hit.
I trust he's going to put the bat on the ball.
Like, above average, But yeah, no, I love that kind of stuff though. But I do think it's tough because there are a lot of sports that are so massive that nothing will change. But like, I think a thing like relegation, where I think it would take time for people to get the full feel of it, I feel like it would be the best thing for it because, like, to be honest, we have, like I said, we have a Colorado Springs team here. They're a single A team. I would love to root for them, but I'm like, one, I'm not a whatever they were affiliated with. I think they were affiliated with, like, I don't even know their last year. I think now they're like an independent ball team technically because they were one of the teams that dropped out. But I'm like, I'm a Tigers fan, so I'm like, I don't. The minor league team, cool. Like, but like, if that was my team and like those dudes were my dudes, they'd be my team.
Oh, you see it again. You see it in soccer with the soccer hooligans and the fans of the clubs because it's their city, it's their club. It's not, in major American sports. Okay, who's the closest, or where do I have ties to, or just who do I like the players? Whereas again, same thing. South Bend Cubs were Silverhawks before that, and they were affiliated with the Diamondbacks.
Yeah,
I didn't care. I didn't waste any time paying attention to what they were doing. It's like, okay,
But that's the crazy thing too is like if Detroit, say the NFL went with relegation and Detroit got relegated, sweet. Guess what? I would love it more because there's 2 ways you have to make it work. No salary cap, 1, and 2, no draft. So I'm like, for people to go to Detroit, we're either going to be a crappy franchise, and then we can see that because you keep getting relegated down to like the lowest tier because you're not freaking trying, and then you become invaluable because there's no point for you to, like, you're not making the money you're making at the top tier as a franchise. So you have incentive to be at the top tier. You have to spend money. So you would overpay in a sense, but you would also go get guys that you could pay instead of just fielding this garbage team that is whatever. And so, like, yeah. And then who knows? Then you can celebrate, right? You're like, oh my God, we're moving up because we won a championship in tier 2. Cool.
Well, and again, then you can develop guys too. Like, if you're a rebuilding team, now you don't necessarily have to, okay, yeah, I've got Trey Lance, but I'm going to sit him because I don't want him to cost us games. No, we're going to run him out every night.
Yeah.
And if you're a guy like that coming out of college, like, sure, you could play on the big team and be the backup, or you can go down a tier and play every game. Yeah. Which one do you want to do?
Yeah, well, and the crazy part too would be like, yeah, exactly. Like, maybe you're the guy, maybe you're that guy, right? Like, it would just eliminate a lot of bullshit basically, because you would have like these guys that are like coming out of college, like maybe a Trevor Lawrence, right? Do you really win by being good? Like, in college? Not necessarily. Like, you almost want to get arrested and have like red flag issues so you get drafted like the 22nd spot. That's literally what the Steelers and the Ravens do all the damn time. They're always in that spot and they're like, yeah, we know that guy had some weird off the field stuff. And then we're like, we figure our culture will just fix it and like draft this guy. And then they're like, oh, TJ Watt got drafted with like the 32nd pick. His last name is Watt. And like, we didn't see this coming. Like,
still made no sense how he fell that far to me. It was like,
there's so many of those where, like, the Honey Badger, he had issues at LSU. We needed a freaking cornerback safety for so bad. It was 1 year we were like kind of halfway decent could potentially make a playoff run. I'm like, that's really like our bad spot. And he's just dropping. And I'm like, what are we, even if he gets out, his contract's gonna be so low, we can cut him. Like, what are you doing?
And who was the guy for that the Cowboys picked up, the tackle? Collins.
Oh, yeah.
It was a first round pick. Then he's linked to a murder 2 days before the draft,
Yeah.
goes completely undrafted, which is for the player was better than being a 7th round pick
Yeah.
or 6th round pick. But at some point, like, why would you at least take a flyer on him at 6 or 7? Like, you're talking a first round talent,
Dude,
6th
I
or
don't
7th
know.
round. Like,
It makes no sense too, because like I mean, some of that stuff you just see teams do it consistently, and you're like Bill Belichick. Belichick, like outside of this year, which he kind of did it inside of the first round. Weirdly enough, like he doesn't. If he has a high pick, he's trying to get out of the first round and get. He would rather have like 4 second-round picks than 1 first-round pick because he's like one of those second-round picks is probably going to pan out. Like,
no, I mean, exactly. They're just teams historically that no matter where they're at are good, and teams
yeah,
that aren't. And I think, whether you're drafting or go to a free agent system for rookies, talent identification is talent identification across the board.
exactly. And you're gonna have players, and you're gonna have those archetypes of teams where it's like, oh, the St. Louis team, they always buy the guy on the 1 year past his prime, but still has a little bit to give. Like you're gonna have those teams, but then
Like, we're going to hang on to the top tier. We're never going to necessarily win a championship, but we're not getting relegated either.
yeah, we're gonna be in the mid pack. Maybe if the guys all live up to their potential, we'll make a run. But like it's like that's I mean, but it is true. Like it's like look at these dudes that like I mean, you see it with football, right? Rasul Davis or Douglas for the Packers. I mean, he was on like 4 teams this year. Now, I mean, he's he's a Pro Bowler.
Yeah, it's one of the best corners in football. It's like, how did everybody miss this?
Yeah, you're like it makes no sense. And you got guys that are undrafted. I mean, famously, Kurt Warner was freaking stocking shelves at a freaking convenience. You know what I mean? Like it's like teams can find the talent, and there's enough talent out there. And I don't think there's enough teams that get. I don't think that everything's so win now that players get pushed over. I say it all the time. I know Tim Tebow gets a bad rap for being a bad quarterback. Maybe he could have developed though. I mean, he won a playoff game. Then the only reason that you could take him out of that position was because the greatest quarterback of all time at the time became a free agent and said he wanted to go there.
Yeah.
It's the only way you take a guy who won a playoff game and be like, you're not our quarterback anymore.
Seeing all the talent you had. Yeah, I think I could take you the rest of the way here.
Like, name me the last time a first round draft choice that won a playoff game the previous season wasn't the start of the next season while he was under contract.
Can't
That never happens.
No, the only way it happens is if you got hurt.
Yeah. Or Peyton Manning becomes available.
Yeah. Or Peyton Manning decides to come to your franchise. Like,
which ultimately, right decision. I mean, right decision.
Went to 2 Super Bowls, won 1. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, that's the thing is like, what if there was 64 teams? Would Tim Tebow be a starter? Would Colin Kaepernick be a starter somewhere? You know what I mean? Like, it takes all of that bullshit off the field stuff out of the way. If talent's talent, yeah, you're going to have guys that are just, they don't want to be in the league and they don't want to make the change. So they're going to get into trouble and they're going to be gone. Right. But talent's talent. And if you can work its way up, then why not?
Yeah, no, I agree. And if you're a team like the Browns who miss on 100 quarterbacks, gives you incentive to move them quicker.
Yeah.
Don't. I had to eat a Tebow jab. I'm throwing out one Browns jab while I'm at it.
I literally was like, oh man, as I was mentioning, I was like, they did beat the Steelers.
They did. Honest. And again, I mean, the defense was called right. We're selling out to stop the run, which is what they had done all day. So it was the right defense. It just happened to be the exact right play call as well against it.
Yeah. So but yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, I think it ultimately, I think you would take a hit in the short term, but I think long term, I think it would be better for the sport to have like more competitive teams that you have to actually have a team that is competitive to stay up in that top tier.
No, and yeah, I do. I think, and again, football, we see it. There's enough talent to go around now that you could add more. Baseball is talking about more expansion. They're looking at cities like Nashville and Portland and Charlotte. It's like, maybe fix Tampa Bay and Oakland first, then expand.
Well, ultimately, you have to fix your problem, which is you have to get teams to spend money.
Right.
Because if you don't get teams to spend money, then you're going to constantly have the Oakland A's be like, I don't know, maybe Jason can hit a curveball 3 out of every 10 times. Like, we'll pay him $50,000. You're like,
Back to the baseball CBA. And if you ever want to know why Tone's podcast is called Off the Rails, now you know why. Because
I just love for me, it's a lot of stuff does combined. So it's like between music, between different leagues, between a lot of this stuff business wise, especially back end contract wise and all that. It's the same
similar.
whether you're talking movies, TV, music, MLB, it's kind of all the same stuff. Everyone's trying to make a buck.
I don't remember who the sports talk guy was, but years ago there was a guy who used to talk about it. Everybody brags about A-Rod's contract. Charlie Sheen was making $2.3 million per episode of 2.5 Men, and he played only home games.
It's true.
Like that man never had to go on the road. He was getting A-Rod money.
Dude,
what are you talking about?
It's crazy. And that's the sucky thing about like business. I mean, you could get into the whole thing of like socialism versus whatever. But business is business, and you got good businessmen, you got bad businessmen, you got bad businesswomen, good businesswomen. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, like you have a path, and if you want to do things the wrong way, you may still get rich. You want to do things the right way, you might still get rich. Like it's a gamble. You're playing the different rules that kind of are like outside of this weird structure of things. But like part of it is very realistically is like business is business at the end of the day. I mean, Jeff Bezos got divorced, gave his ex-wife half of his money. His net worth is still $200 billion. There are like 7.9 billion people on the planet. He could give everybody on the planet $25. Like that's wild. That's how much money he has.
There you go. Go nuts.
Like that's nuts. Like, I mean, it's one of those weird things. It's like nothing's going to be even. I'm not at Jeff Bezos's financial level, but that doesn't mean I work less hard or whatever it is. I mean, he had the right opportunity and took it where it needed to go.
Right. No, I mean, sometimes you just the right person, the right place at the right time, and you get the right breaks. I think we were going to talk NFL, but we're already at 90 minutes here. So I think we're going to call this.
I was going to say, do you want to run through the playoff structure real quick? No, I'm just kidding. We can.
14-game baseball playoff? No.
I do think Green Bay will play probably Kansas City in the Super Bowl. That's my prediction.
I don't know about Green Bay. There's just something where every year they seem to get in their own way in the playoffs.
Keep in mind, I want nothing more than the Rams to win the Super Bowl, just so I can literally talk to every Green Bay Packer fan and be like, now what? Matt Stafford has comparable stats, and they both have Super Bowls.
Well, and I mean, that's again, not to get too far to it, but that's always one of those things. Like Aaron Rodgers may be the most talented thrower of a football, but it's hard to put him in the best ever when you've not only won one Super Bowl, you've only been to one.
Yeah.
Like, for years, I think it was almost a 20-year stretch in the AFC. There was this weird stat where it was either a Brady or Manning or Roethlisberger played in the Super Bowl for the AFC for like 20 years. It's like, that's how you get to be elite, not one time. Like it's great. But yeah, I mean, the NFC is just so weird. Like,
what's weird too, especially
Tampa Bay is just hard to write off until they're done.
So Brady. I mean, I mean, it's Brady. I mean, look at this past week's the greatest example of it, right? They were losing to the Jets. AB has a weirdest thing, fucking runs off the field. Tom Brady somehow brings him back in the game because he's Tom Brady.
Yeah, you left him time, but yeah, in the AFC, I don't see anybody beating Kansas City. I don't. I was just looking at the standings real quick. Like
the teams are so rough because I think it's like the Bengals they're gonna sit Burrow, which I think is the wrong move. I think just let him stay hot.
Yeah, when you're hot, just ride it. Like
I don't know.
You've seen with the teams that have come out of the wild card rounds, like Pittsburgh when they won in Super Bowl 40, when Eli and the Giants took out the Patriots. Like those guys played Week 17, they stayed hot and just carried it right on into the playoffs and kept going.
Yeah,
it wasn't a sit out and get healthy, and Burrow being so young and so few snaps.
Well, that's the thing. I think that's why I think he didn't play like it, but I think the Rams again or the Cardinals. The Cardinals should beat Dallas. Those teams are gonna. They're still. I think they depending on how it lays out at the end of this. I think either team can win the division. So they're both going to play their starters. And,
Right. Yeah.
And if one of those teams has a good game and goes off to the races, I mean, or a team like the Raiders or Chargers who are playing Monday night for basically they're in. Like, I did see a weird stat. I think it's like if the Colts lose to the Jaguars,
Yeah.
if the Raiders and the Chargers tie, they both make the playoffs.
Right. No. So yeah, if for the Steelers to make it, the Steelers have to win, the Colts have to lose, and Chargers and Raiders not tie. So there was somebody who was joking online that, since the Chargers and the Raiders are the 8 o'clock
last
Sunday game, that if the Colts lose and the Steelers win, that they could both just take knees for 60 minutes and make the playoffs. We're like, no, we're good.
How hilarious would that be if that actually
happened? I think Roger Goodell would come unglued, though, watching that on national TV.
But the funny thing is, I think that's a structure of the weird stuff you throw in when you add a 17th game. Because that's only going to happen, I think, if you have a 17th game.
Although, again, I did kind of predict it at the beginning of the season that somehow that Mike Tomlin would find a way to go 500 in a 17-game season.
Dude,
and he pulled it off.
That is a wonderful, wonderful way to, I think, end this podcast is and not even a Steelers fan, but like Mike Tomlin doesn't get enough credit for what he does. I mean, that dude has had some rough teams. He's had some injuries. A quarterback that's probably held on a little bit too long. I mean, been great, but he probably maybe a year or two past where you guys probably could have upgraded.
His mobility is definitely an issue at that point. It's like you start watching some of the highlights. It's like, oh wait, that's what I remember who you used to be.
Yeah.
It's like, and then you watch the games now. It's like you just won't even hold on to the ball because you don't even want to try to move. Like I get the lines not as good as it used to be either, but
yeah,
there used to be a point where you just shoved those guys off, didn't matter, and then moved 8 steps to the left and chucked it 40 yards down the field.
Right. Not doing that anymore. But like Mike Tomlin, what he's done year in and year out, I think it's 15 seasons.
15 seasons, no losing record. I mean, Ben's going to end his career 18 years, never had a losing season.
That's absurd.
So
shout out to Mike Tomlin. Also, by the way, I'll bring it back. This will be a great way to close this out, Jason. One of the hosts of my podcast, Man to Man Pod, went to Denby High School, wore number 4, Antoine Bethea. Also went to Denby High School, wore number 4, Mike Tomlin. So
I think that is the perfect send-off. Thank you to anybody who tuned in live. I think we had like 2 people pop in while we were on YouTube live here. And I know Todd posted a couple comments, particularly since there's only 2 people that follow the YouTube page. That's pretty impressive. And I'm one of the 2. But this was episode 1 of the Sports Stooges podcast. Thank you, Tone, for joining me.
No, thank you for having me.
We'll have to have you back on when you got some more stuff going so we can promote it even more for you.
Definitely, yeah. And I know in speaking to my co-host Gems, he said he would like to do your podcast as well. So
I figure I'll just make the rounds one by one out of all of the group on there. Because again, if you don't know, we're all fans of the Pat McAfee show here.
For sure.
And that's kind of how we've all gotten to know each other on Twitter. And most of us have not seen each other in real life, but
but it's awesome
online regularly.
You become friends via proximity, and it's cool. It's the awesome thing about the internet. And Jason, definitely we'll have to have you on once we start kicking back up episodes. Have you on, promote your show as well.
Appreciate it. All right, everybody. Until next time, peace out.